So hopefully everybody can see the browser view here, which is TerraTrak. So this is what our instance looks like. You can see our little logo up there. I think if Metro was logged in, that'd be different, but otherwise things are pretty uniform. This is the homepage that pops up, which is a dashboard. You can see the things I've recently been doing. I'm going to walk through how I enter plant material, how plant material moves through the system, but if people have questions at any point, feel free to type them in, and Damon or Brian will flag me, and if I'm not explaining things well, just let me know. So the same way we would start with procurement with a request for quotes or proposals, or a call to a nursery and say, hey, do you have some plants? In TerraTrak, that starts with a growing agreement. So as you can see, we've got a lot of them over the years. Some of them are labeled with multiple fiscal years. Those are the multi-year growing agreements. If we have a standing contract with nurseries, sometimes it's more of a one-off, and then there's just a little note. Naming conventions are customizable, however your organization would track things. This is basically just a, hey, we have a plan to get a particular stock type from a particular nursery for a span of years. TerraTrak has the ability to upload documents and agreements, whether scanned or draft, or once again, customizable to how your organization would want to use that. We haven't uploaded this yet, but I believe we plan to use that functionality. You can tie it directly to a contractor in the system, which will track their phone number, contacts, and specific people at that organization as well. So once there's a growing agreement, the next step to actually plan the specific plants that you've got coming from that nursery they're called material orders. So this was under this administration tab back here, the agreements. And then most of what I do in the system as a material manager for clean water services is under this materials tab. So under materials, and there's material orders. You can see here a couple that are labeled for fiscal year 17. I entered a couple placeholder ones for the sake of this demo. If you click on this closed out orders tab, you can see, once again, there's a lot of these. So it's nice that you can set them up, you can use them for the year, you can close them out, declutter that view, but everything is still in the system. So there's a lot of ways to query data back out of that historical information that we'll look at the end of this. But for now, for demo's sake, material order coming in, you can see this is tied back to that growing agreement. In some cases, we propagate material ourselves, and there isn't truly a contract associated with the plant material coming in which case it would just refer back to the Clean Water Services propagated plant material growing agreement. Once again, customizable. If you're not strictly on those multi-year growing agreements, the system still totally works. Tied back to the growing agreement, there's start and end dates, a name. You can designate an accounting code right away for the pot of money you're going to pull from to actually pay that invoice. If I know sometimes it comes up that a specific project manager will order special plant material for one particular project, TerraTrak has the ability to designate that. In this case, if this was 200 extra special plants that one project manager ordered direct from a nursery, you could call out a specific project that those were tied to. Most of ours, and this one that I'll walk through today, are just kind of going into the general pool of plants that then will get divvied up and allocated to multiple different projects. But it's good to know you can do that. Then the kind of meat and potatoes bulk of the material order is this grid here. And you'll see as I move through today, a lot of these views are standardized. Usually these drop downs are smart. So let's say I want to add another species to this. We'll add some oaks. I can start typing quercus. I can also start typing oak and go, I wonder what kind of oaks we have in the system. We've just got the one, but depending on your organization, or if I started typing willow, I'd get all the willows. Let's add some oaks because I'm partial to them. So we're going to add another species of bare root to this material order from Shoals. If there's a contracted quantity, something on that multi-year growing agreement, you can enter that there, and we'd all love to think we're getting the full allocated or the full contracted quantity. If I get a call up partway through the season that they're actually shorter than I thought, I can come in here and lower the number. for whatever reason. As we know, there's just some unpredictability in the nursery industry. And then it's nice that you preserve that contracted quantity. But the inventory columns that we'll see in a minute populate from this expected column. So yeah, it's kind of the typical things you'll encounter. You can also, or actually probably what also happens a lot is if we call the nursery up and say, oops, we need more of something, or hey, can you help us out, can you bail us out, we need to increase numbers, and if they have extra, you can go in and add more species, you can increase that expected quantity too. So then you've got the plan of what you're expecting to get from any of the nurseries, whether it's anybody else that we're working with out here, and you would have a different material order for each chemistry. And when you go to schedule deliveries, you do what's called a delivery receipt. You designate a location. So our boats go through some rented cooler space. We've got these all set up for what we do, but once again, customizable per location. We'll pretend that we're taking delivery today, even though that wouldn't happen in June. And then if everything's coming on the same truck, you can toggle this all on. If they're doing multiple deliveries, you can say these 3 species are coming and they're, you know, maybe sending the first half of one of them. All pretty easy to enter, as we said before. This will generate what's called a delivery receipt or delivery slip. And then this is important. There's the last step to transition this plant material from, you know, with the grower to in our cooler is this accept button. And this is what will actually transition that plant material from on order to on hand in the inventory columns that we'll go look at right now. So once again, every time there's a physical switch in plant material, there's a switch in TerraTrak that lets us know where things actually are. So this is the inventory view I keep referring to with these columns. It was loaded before I hit that accept on the delivery receipt. If I reload this, you can see plant material should switch from the on order column, which is populating from that expected quantity on the material orders, to on hand, which is nice because even if you are expecting to get plant material, if you don't know what you already have on hand, it's hard to schedule a delivery going out. So you can see that real-time switch just that easy in plant material, and I know what I should actually have at the cooler. This is, speaking of the cooler, this is the cooler specific tab on the inventory. So this one here is everything across all of our locations, all of the species, what we're planning to get in, and so on and so forth, versus the specific location. So once again, I can go and I can look at the cooler. This is last year's data, so this doesn't mean a lot right now because we're between planting seasons. But you could go in here and you could see real time what I've got at the cooler that's ready to go out. There's a lot of information in this inventory page. I spent a lot of time looking at this chart during planting season. You know what you have, you know what you're expecting to still get in, you know the total that you've got to allocate and divvy up. This allocated column represents what we physically have possession of, but it's already been promised to a particular site. Then you've got the underovers that tell you hopefully you're in the black and you still have plants, or actually towards the end of the season, hopefully you're nice and zeroed out and you have homes for all your plants. Unallocated requests are if project managers or partners have submitted a material request for that plant material that haven't been responded to. And then this column at the end says whether or not you've received more requests than you have plants to allocate, in which case you go start subbing or having conversations with your project managers. But it's all right here. It's all real-time tracks and inventory. Compared to the Excel spreadsheet we were trying to maintain before, this is just amazingly less painful, as I'm sure anybody who's tried to maintain a database may understand. So we've got plant material in. Material managers are waiting for requests to come in for it to go out. I'm going to kind of continue through the process. Project managers or partners or whoever has access to the system, depending on how different organizations do it, will go to a site in Terramet and enter a material request for plant material. So once again, these search functions are all pretty easy to navigate. I'm going to go to a particular site that I've decided to guinea pig here. You can start typing it in and look for it. You can type in a particular project manager, or you can search by ID, which is nice because we have the same IDs in our internal ArcGIS system and in Terramet, so we hopefully always know what site we're talking about. You can click on that and it'll load. I've already got it loaded here. So this is the site page for one of our properties that we maintain a project on. Project manager would go here. You can see it on the map. You know you're at the right site. And they'll enter what's called a material request. So over here on the left, there's always this sort of navigation bar with a map and a bunch of different sort of aspects of Terramet that Brian alluded to before. You can track many more things than plant material. We're just focused on material requests for today. And Clean Water Services is still in the process of fleshing some of those out. Metro has a much more robust use of these options over here. So a particular material request looks something like this. Very similar view to that material order, which lets people sort of get familiar with how to enter things in here. It gets pretty intuitive after you're in here for a while. Basic information at the top, but for plants going out, that's more, where are they going? When do they want them to go there? Requested pickup, requested planting. We have the ability to track those separately because some people who enter plant requests in here are nonprofit partners that might pick up container plants a few days ahead of time and then have planting on the weekends. We have the ability to track that if we want to. Can enter a particular contractor if they're coming to actually pick up the plants. All of this information in the basic info will populate the pick slips, which is nice because then the material managers actually have the phone number of who you should be ringing at 7 a.m. if you're expecting a pickup to happen that isn't happening for whatever reason. If a material request gets entered for one project and then they go, oops, that project's flooded, let's send those plants to a different site, you have the ability to transfer, which is nice without re-entering the whole material request. You can designate a project manager. Once again, you can designate a funding source right away tied to the material request so that you can plan ahead and budget, and it's not a separate data entry step at the end of the season when you're going to sort of reconcile all of the finances. You can designate a partner organization so that if somebody from one of our city or nonprofit partners has a login and they are designated as a partner on this material request, they can log in and see it too. So see what's planned to go to the site, whether it's been picked up, things like that. And then you get to this. Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah,
this is Brian. If I could interject, there is a simplified view for planting requests that partners can use to submit their requests directly into the system without shipping emails all around and causing confusion on who asked for what when. So.
Yeah, and that's been hugely helpful for us.
That out, Water Services. Another view. That's
yeah, we procure plant material and then divide it up between a lot of partners. We do not get all these plants in the ground by ourselves. We're sort of a lot of times just a plant hub, especially for community plantings throughout Washington County. We work with a lot of nonprofits and city partners who will take those plants and actually turn them into worthwhile volunteer events. And so really we just want them to be able to submit that plant request. And in the past that was an email, PDF, or paper process, or a little bit of all three of those, which was maddening and error prone sometimes for both us and our partners. So this is nice. Yeah, it's really nice that they can go in and submit those plant requests. And it's also really important that there's a simplified view that they can, it's basically just a plant request form. So for us, that's good because we don't have to give access to our entire system to a partner who just wants to submit a plant request. And for them, it's nicer because it's a lot simpler for them to get in there and submit a request without having to do quite as involved a process. So really good point. Yeah. So project managers come in, enter once again with this basic grid. Now that we know that there's oak in the system, we can add some to here. They would enter a requested quantity. I have material manager permissions, so I can enter numbers in this allocated column. Project managers would just have I think it's either not there or it's grayed out. So they're just entering a requested quantity. And then this is what it would look like when it comes in to the material managers. We would use that inventory view and some of the browse views I'll show you in a minute to look at overall what we've got coming in and overall what project managers want and make the tough calls on who gets what. And then we would fill out this allocated column. So if you have plenty of plants and it's fully allocated, it's really simple to drag that over and hit save. So if you've got a material request list that's 10 species long, it's quick for that. If there was a failure at ash at one of the nurseries or something happened and we didn't have as much as we hoped, you can come in here and you can lower this. You can zero it out completely. You can see here real time what you have available to allocate still, which is nice. So I'm shorting this person unnecessarily just for the sake of demonstration. But it's cool that you've got that, once again, real-time information. So this update's now live there. You saw those numbers change to reflect what is now available to allocate based on what I just did. And then once again, similar process. This is all planning, and then to actually, trigger the plants have moved, we would do a pick slip. What's that?
Just a quick interjection. When you're done with this, I'll jump in and mention something.
Okay. Yeah. So once again, really similar functionality to the delivery slip, but this one's a pick slip. So going out. This one we have some options. Pick slip is a standard from our either cooler or farm space. If something's going straight from a nursery, our nurseries help us out sometimes, and they'll either do a direct pickup or sometimes a delivery straight to a site if it's a big enough order, which is really nice. You can designate a delivery, in which case it's going straight from a material order to a site, or you can do on-site. We track some things like live steaks that contractors harvest on-site and just install. So there's some options, but this is just going to be standard bare material coming out of the cooler. We're going to make them all pick it up at once, toggle that on. They're picking up today as well. Once again, not logical because it's June, but that's fine. And then you can generate a PDF in this case. This is nice. This is telling me, oh, wait, you don't actually have all this stuff because I didn't deliver those species. So even though I have them available to allocate and as projected in inventory because they're expected, they haven't been delivered yet, so they're not on hand. And this is generating this little error, like, are you sure you want to generate this pick slip? That's actually what it says. Wow. Yeah. I can trump that and generate the pick slip, but as you can see here, I can't accept this delivery because I don't have the plants to do it. It's nice that I can download a PDF. We print these, take them to the cooler, and actually use those to facilitate pulling all the material requests into bags and staging them for contractors. So I think that's all I was going to say about pick slips. Steve, do you want to add what you were going to say?
Yeah. On the request table, the material, those are highlighted in blue. If you click one of those links for me.
This one?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. Good call, Steve. Yeah.
So if there's something about that particular, set of 250 plants that, maybe they were a little oversized or undersized or root bound, or they came from a particular collection site, some anecdotal information that might be important for the specific site that isn't otherwise tracked. You can add some notes about that, what you're sending to the site.
Yeah, that's cool. There's a couple different sort of notes that we've applied that we can go on the pick slip overall. We can say, hey, whoever's pulling the plants generally pull larger plant material or things like that, but it's nice that you can also do species-specific ones. So I could say, there are 2 sizes of ash, use the big ones or something, blah, 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 blah. And this will wind up on the pick slip, which is nice. So yeah, if I actually had to plant material at the cooler, this pick slip would go there. We'd scribble all over it and say, hey, this is actually pulled. And then the morning that whoever's at the cooler meets this pickup, they can log directly into the computer, compare the signed pick slip to Terramet, as long as there is no change, they'd hit accept, and then that plant material has physically left our space and is also transitioned in status in the system at the same time. So yeah, the real-time tracking leads to, I've alluded a couple of times, to browse views and ways to get that information back out. That inventory grid we looked at is the main one that material managers will look at, but then there is a very robust, under here, material request browse, what I think is really helpful browse view that lets you dig into the data that's in the system a little bit more. I loaded a couple just as examples. So not only material managers, but project managers could come in. Anil, who I was using as a guinea pig before, could come in and look at all the plant material that went to that site that he was submitting a material request for. He could look at the material that's gone there the last 3 years, or in this case, I think I just have it pulled to grab everything that's gone there. And you can tell that it's been planted the last 3 years. You can tell if you expand these, you can turn on different things over here. You can turn on different toggles here. And then you can see, you know, in 2014, these stock types went there. Of the plugs, it was those species in these numbers. Or I can collapse these to just say, hey, wow, over the last 3 years, we've sent, you know, how many plants have gone there. There's another view in another area that's got the pricing and the financial information there, which is nice for, like I said, end of season reconciliation and budget planning for future years. This is another view that I find really helpful. So you can see in this case, I've filtered it to just material requests for this fiscal year. So mid-season, I can go in by either project manager, partner, stock type, and see who's requested what. I can, at this point, see what I allocated. Oh, I think that when I opened the new one, I might have frozen this one. I don't know if I can expand those right now because I switched to this one being the live one. But I could reorder this. I could say, you know, show me prioritize partners first. I could say, show me material type. I hit apply, it reorganizes. It's really quick on the fly, and it's all pulling the most updated information. If I change something in the inventory, I just reload this page, and then it's live. So I can look at, you know, of all the ABs we have going out, where is it going, who wants it, etc. by site. I think those are the things. Oh, sure.
Can I note also too? There's the export to Excel, so for further analysis.
Oh, yep.
So it's you can pull this out and do an analysis in Excel, everybody's favorite data management tool.
Yeah, you can, and that does. There's a handful of ways that's really important. We have some project managers who like to do an export of what they've done at a particular site so that they can copy, paste it, mess around with it in Excel as they plan for the next year, and then you can, you know, copy and paste the list back into a material request so that you can have one Excel workbook with all your particular sites and columns to chew through it. There's a bunch of different ways that's nice. There's also a print view, which for whatever data we've got, we'll pull up a separate tab and a view that's easily printed. So if I want to send, if I get a call from a nonprofit partner and they want to know, hey, can you tell me what plants went to these 5 sites over the last 3 years, I can create a browse view with that, do a print view, either print out a hard copy or print a PDF and email it to them really quickly, even if it's somebody who doesn't have a TerraTrak login, which is nice. So yeah, that's a good point. Those two, both of those exports are really nice.
And Margaret, are you going to mention the saved views? You've made really great use of those.
I have, yeah. So what I did today was go in and have these sort of loaded and teed up. But if I wanted to essentially do that functionality, either, you know, with a bigger time lag, you know, if I want to come in and see the same view tomorrow, or if I want somebody else to be the same, to be able to see the same view, I can make a saved view. So you can see some of the ones, and any of the project managers can do this and make a saved view as well. Some of these make, you know, allocated plants by partner for current fiscal year. So I can go in there and say, hey, where are our plants going this year, or where have I said they're going? And maybe I'm shorting somebody and I didn't even really realize it, or something like that. Or it's just really cool to talk it up and say, wow, hey, Friends of Trees is planning to plant X number of plants this year. There's some views that project managers have made where they can see everything summarized for a year with fiscal information. You can see what's already gone out. You can see, I like this one, remaining to be picked up. This is a nice quick view of what is still promised to go out, and then which site is it supposed to be going to, and or which project manager. Like, who do I need to pester and say, hey, you still got plants in the cooler. So yeah, those saved views are really nice. So this is, I think, what I was planning to walk through. I will stop sharing this screen unless people have other questions that you want to ask right now while we're in here and can still click around. I don't know if I can see the questions, though.
That saved view this week pickup looks useful.
Yeah, that one's really nice. So, and especially because there's a designation in this filter where you can just set it to this week. So every time you load that view, it really will load the current week. You don't have to go in there and enter a different date range. And as you can see, this one was created by our cooler manager, our really like on the ground, boots on the ground material manager. And so she has a view where she would print either this week or next week. She'd pull up all the material requests that are set to go out next week, print all the pick slips, take them in a folder, go drop them off with the cooler attendant who's pulling lists, and just have that view constantly updating just by reloading the page the next week.
Margaret, I think I'm going to take us out of the demo mode and back to the slide deck.
Okay.
We just have a few more slides, but I do have a question from one of the listeners. And again, if anybody else has questions, you can do so. You can just type it in via the Q&A button. That's either at the bottom of your screen, or it might be at the top, depending on your screen. But the question is, has there been changes in how you interact with nurseries, or have you heard feedback from the nurseries that you deal with after using this solution?
That's a good question. I found things a little bit simpler. So because I can track deliveries live in there and enter, accept receipts right away or delivery slips right away, I've found it a little bit easier to then be able to pick up the phone and have a conversation with the nursery if I feel like they're usually more organized than I am, if anything. So they call and they say, oh, hey, we've got the last truck coming with the rest of your list. This is what I've got that's supposed to be on there. Does that match what you still have as remaining to be received? And that information's a lot more at my fingertips than it was the first couple years that I was working here when we were in Excel. So I've found it easier to have those conversations with nurseries. They don't, at this point for us, they don't log in themselves into the system. Probably something that we could talk about, if we were both checking the same system, both looking at the same spreadsheet for what was remaining to be received, we could talk about that. So I don't know that it's made their lives much different. They haven't had to change systems or anything, but maybe they've had an easier response from us on this end when they confirm their numbers or things like that. And
there's another one here. It's thank you for answering that. That's very informative, at least for me. And can non-CWS partners submit plant requests directly into your system? You may have already kind of alluded to that.
Yeah, that's a good one to blatantly call out. So yeah, so we have the option to give people, so recurring partners, we can give them a login, but designate them as a partner, and they have a much simplified view of the system. They can see their material requests in a simpler and more kind of public-facing form for plant requests. It's nice we can limit them to a particular stock type on one request. We can force them to just do all their bare roots on one request and then a different one for containers, so we've got them going to different locations. We can also designate some plant material as internal use only, So once again, if a project manager orders a bunch of really unusual things for a particular site, they don't clutter up the standard list that partners are requesting. And that's really nice. It's not accessible to the general public. There's not there's not one link on the website where anybody can go in there, but our recurring nonprofit and city partners submit requests directly into the system, which is hugely beneficial to me personally, not to have to copy and paste from PDF into something.
Well, we do want your life to be easier.
That's what I'm shooting for, but yeah. Just kidding.
And so here is like you're just kind of like reiterating your module benefits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think this is the same list from before, but to touch through it again now that we've seen the demo. So materials are tied to locations, whether it's the locations they're moving from to in the nursery and cooler or to in the sites. They can be spatially allocated throughout the process. We know which nurseries plants are coming from, which location they're getting delivered to, and then what sites they're allocated to. And then there's a Terramet transition, or a way to trigger a transition to different states every time the plants physically move into or out of our physical care. Data tracking just becomes part of the workflow. The delivery receipts, the pick slips, the allocation, communication with project managers, all of that would have to happen anyways, just for us to do the job of getting plants from a nursery and into grounds via contractors. And the fact that it's just the data tracking just happens as we're doing that is really nice. It's not a separate entry process. You can get, because it's live and there's no lag, you can get data out really quickly, and multiple project managers or material managers can all access the same data, same live updated data, and it's easy to enter things. So you've got real-time feedback of correct information for both the